Hello, fantasy managers, and welcome back to the FPL podcast by Fantasy Football Hub. I should firstly say thank you for the incredible support and positive feedback for last week's episodes. This week, we're focusing on a certain Spurs revolution under Mourinho and taking a closer look at premium and mid-price midfielders. Before we get into it, if you're interested in trialing our membership for free, go to fantasyfootballhub.co.uk/free trial. You'll gain access to all our FPL membership resources completely free for 7 days. Now, back to this week's episode, and we're back, and we're without the Welsh tones of Andrew, but I am joined again by Andy, Adam, and welcome to our good friend and fellow podcaster, Tom from Who Got the Assist. Gents, how are we all doing?
Good, thanks, Will.
Good. Well, let's move on to you, Tom, and let's tell us why have we got you on this podcast?
Oh God, why have you got me on this podcast? Who knows? I think everybody that you asked probably said no, so you had to scrape the barrel and get me on. But yeah, no, I'm a part of Who Got the Assist. You can find us on Twitter at WGTA_FPL. And me and my friend Nick basically have been doing a podcast for the last couple of years. This is year 3 now. And for whatever reason, we've found that people for some reason like to listen to us. And we've got, quite a lot of listeners every week, which is quite pleasing to see. And almost 31,000 followers now. Again, for some reason, I don't really know why. But there we go. I'm very excited to be on tonight. Thanks for having me. It's great to see how you guys have started, and I'm hoping people don't log off after hearing my dulcet tones again, especially for WGA listeners.
No, it's great to have you on, and great to have such a professional podcaster such as yourself joining us amateurs. And more importantly than your podcast, though, how is your FPL season going?
I've picked it up recently, actually. So I think the first 9-10 game weeks were pretty bad. Like I was in the millions for quite a while, and then in the last kind of 3 game weeks I've shaved 1 million off my rank. I'm now just inside the top 300k, which is doesn't sound particularly impressive, of course, if you put that on paper, but throughout the course of the season, if you're looking to create a foundation to build on with your FPL team, I'm pretty happy with that on game week 13. I think it can only improve from there. Well, I'm hoping it only improve from there. So the last couple of game weeks I've got 80 plus scores. This game week I got a sweet 69, and I think going forward I'm hoping to do well. So yeah, pleasingly doing all right for now.
Very nice. Well, hopefully you can pass some words of wisdom on to us three who I struggled a little bit last week, game week I know as well. Andy did, but we're hoping that this game we're going to turn things around a little bit. We're going to move on to our first hot topic then, and Luke Wilson asking there, Son more or Ali, and pros or cons at each. And just in general, we got loads and loads of questions on Spurs, and is there a Mourinho revolution happening? I know, Andy, you're also a Spurs fan like myself. What do you think? I've noticed that the Spurs are 1-0 down against Olympiacos. We're recording this on Tuesday evening. Has the bubble burst already?
I don't think so yet. It's a very small sample size, let's be honest. I think I actually wasn't too surprised by the appointment of Mourinho. Obviously, Pochettino had a great record, probably one of the best records of any Spurs manager. But I think if you look at his track record in the bigger games, it was actually quite disappointing. Everyone's going to remember the Champions League final when he strangely played Kane ahead of Moura, who's in such excellent form. But I think if you look at all the big games, Jamie Carragher was talking about it on Sky Sports, that he's really struggled to perform in those big games. Obviously, Mourinho wants to regain credibility in the Premier League. And also, Mourinho loves London. I think his son's just signed for Fulham. So there's kind of a natural fit. The interesting thing will be with the transfer policy, and not just the transfer policy, the wage policy. If you compare London clubs, I know Tom's an Arsenal fan, but Ozil's on 350k a week. I think Kane's the highest earner at Spurs, and he's somewhere in the region of 200k a week. So it'd be very interesting to see how that develops. Now, obviously, there's been the public statement that they're not looking, and there's a great squad right now. But I think there'll be some of the previous targets will be looked at again, like Bruno Fernandes, maybe in January. But if we look at the very small sample size of one game so far, Son obviously grabbed the headlines with the goal and assist, and certainly he's always been a direct player, very much in tune with kind of Mourinho's style as well. But I thought it was interesting to see that they weren't trying to pass it out from the back. A lot more long balls coming from Gazzaniga. When Spurs had the ball, Aurier became this kind of winger element, and they moved to three at the back. So the style is definitely changing. I'll let Tom talk about Son because I know he's brought him in, but I think one player that might be somewhat under the radar at the moment is Lucas Moura. Now, Mourinho actually tried to sign him for Real Madrid when he was at Sao Paulo, so it's obviously one of his kind of top goals in this team, and obviously very pacey, direct runner, everything ticks the boxes for me. Moura with Mourinho, and he actually performed pretty well in the last game. He had 3 shots, 1 on target. He actually had the highest XG of any player in the Spurs team in the first game. So I'm keeping my eye on him. He's obviously very reasonable at 7 million, which if you're looking for, as I might be, we'll get onto the teams later, I might be looking for an upgrade of Mason Mount. So that is in a similar price bracket. And the other one that I think is interesting is Aurier. I think, as I said, he played right wing when Spurs had possession. Obviously, had a nice assist, but generally he seems to get quite high up in the bonus points. I'm kind of thinking like a Spurs version of Wan-Bissaka last season. So yeah, obviously we don't know what's going on at Spurs, but we think the progress looks quite good so far with a very, very small sample size.
Good, yeah, that's a brilliant analysis, I think, and I've got to admit that Lucas Moura does look like good value at that price range. Son probably the standout one, but Adam, what do you think on this? Are you eyeing up any Spurs assets?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm from an FPL point of view, I think Mourinho, what he does bring, which probably Poch didn't, is the consistency of teams. I think throughout his career in the Premier League, he's tended to stick with the same defence. So I don't think we'll have that fullback rotation. So I think potentially Aurier could be a good option if he loses that suspect tag. I think the player for me that really stands out, I think you just mentioned, Will, and he's the obvious one, is Son. And I think obviously this time last year, it was about, I think, game week 13 that he really came onto the scene to game week 21. And I think just the way he's been playing, even when Spurs were poor, he's looked the main threat. I thought he looked brilliant again the weekend. There were a couple of chances I think he laid in Moura where he missed an absolute sitter in the second half. So for me, Son is the most explosive as well. I think, I remember last season he got a 20 plus score away at Everton. So I think he would be my number one option. But if you want it sounds a bit silly saying this, but if you want a bit of a gamble, I think Kane could also be a very, very good option. I thought he looked much better the weekend. He was playing more on the shoulder. Unlucky to have the goal rule. Well, he wasn't unlucky; it was offside. But he showed glimpses of his old self. So, I think I'm definitely interested in Spurs. I'm not as keen on Moura purely because I think he's more likely to be rested or taken off early. And I don't think he's ever been brilliant for bonus because, historically anyway. So I would go, personally, I'm more interested in Son out of the midfielders.
Yeah, the interesting thing about Kane was that he was booked for the first time in February in that game. So I think Mourinho said, listen, I want you to be more aggressive. I want you to be more pressing the ball. And, I think the interesting thing with Moura, Lamela is another option no one's really talked about. He is a very aggressive kind of presser of the ball. So Moura's minutes could be challenged by the likes of Lamela and possibly even Lo Celso. We haven't seen enough of him yet.
No, I agree. I think the one that obviously you guys have mentioned is Dele Alli that Luke mentions in the question. It's interesting with Ali because my mind goes back to Wesley Sneijder at Inter. It goes back to Deco at Porto as well. And obviously Ali doesn't quite have the same skill set. He's more of a shadow striker, but 8.4 million. And the guy in the past, like longer term players, I think will have fond memories of Ali. So for example, in 2016-17, he amassed 225 points, 18 goals, 11 assists when he was playing shadow striker. I think we were watching that game as well. He was less than 1% owned before Mourinho came in. Now he's a little bit above that, but I think Son's kind of stolen the glory to some extent. I bought Son. I think, as Adam said, he's very explosive. He's the most threatening player at Spurs, I think, without a doubt. But Ali, I think at 8.4 could be very interesting to watch. I'm not sure I'd say buy yet. I think Son is probably the kind of player who, regardless of the regime, is a great player who has that in him to get those double-figure returns. With Ali, we used to have those in the past, and under Pochettino, he really regressed over the last year or so. But it sounds like Mourinho's reignited his fire by asking him, "Are you Dele Alli or Dele Alli's brother?" So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. I do like Lucas as well. 7.0, you get what you pay for. He may well, be benched in midweek next week. But again, you get what you pay for, and you've got to hope that your, Soyuncu or your Rico on the bench comes through for you. But loads of options there for sure.
Yeah, I think it's quite exciting times for Spurs assets from an FPL point of view. And Son is probably my pick of the bunch there. I know that I was talking in our contributor group about bringing him in the last game week, actually. And I was very, very close to do it. And I chickened out of it in the end. And I'm absolutely kicking myself for it now. And I think that, as Adam said, we've got a lot of games coming up, over the next couple of game weeks. And then we're going into the busy festive season. So actually, someone like Kane, you know that he's going to be playing all those matches. You know that he's on penalties, and he traditionally really likes over, the Christmas season. So I do think that he could be a potential option. Obviously, he still comes up with a pretty heavy price tag of 10.8 million. So he doesn't come in cheap. So on balance, I'm still leaning towards Son, and I might actually bring him in like you, Tom, this week as well. Having said that, Spurs have also just gone 2-0 down against Olympiacos. So we could be looking at a short-term options as Spurs assets. But I'm still keen to go for them, and I think I'm leaning towards Son. Okay, moving on to the next hot topic then. And again, it's a similar one because we're looking at midfielders, but a lot of people, myself included, are sitting with Salah or Sterling. I've actually still got both of them. So I think that goes to show that I need to move off the dead weight and bring in the likes of Pulisic and Son. And for those listening on the podcast and can't see the graphic up, we've got a comparison between Salah and Sterling and Pulisic and Son. So a 2 versus 2, and Pulisic and Son coming out well on top for all the key numbers there. So it just goes to show that Salah and Sterling have really dropped off form lately. And, Salah with the injury, and Sterling has got some tricky fixtures upcoming. So what about, Adam, have you still got Salah and Sterling, and are you looking to ditch them?
No, I ditched Salah in game week 2. So he's been long gone for me. Sterling, I do have. It's a difficult one because I think with Aguero out, I think there's some positives there. But what it comes down to for me is at 12 million, I'm not going to captain him with Vardy and Mane in incredible form. So I think Son will at least match him or come close to matching him. And I think there's other players, even like Pulisic potentially as well. So what it comes down to is the upgrade you can make elsewhere. So say you go Sterling to Son, you've got an extra 2.5-3 million to play with. And, that's the difference between upgrading maybe Connolly to Jimenez. So it's a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned. He could punish me, but I just think you're covering it with 2 positions. I think the way that the game has gone this year with value, other than possibly Mane, I don't really see much above the 10 million mark that's performing at the moment. So I think you're better off spreading the funds around. So that's my view. Obviously, Sterling's a world-class player, so that it could all go wrong. But I think there's enough other options to look at the moment.
What about yourself, Andy? Have you? Have you still got Sterling? Is that right?
Yeah, still got Sterling. A lot's been made of Aguero's injury, and there's some tweets put out about Sterling's points per game with Jesus starting, but actually it's a bit misleading in the sense that, yes, Jesus just did start those games, but actually when Sterling popped a couple of those goals in, Jesus wasn't on the pitch. So the one thing I looked at from last week was the return of Mendy. I felt after Angelina's poor performance against Liverpool, I thought Mendy was definitely going to start, and he would really open up Sterling to move more central and therefore get in the goals, get in the assists a bit more. However, watching the game, I was staggered. I mean, Mendy made 1 cross throughout that game. So whether he's been pegged back or he's not the same player after his injury, my feeling is that Pep's obviously said, hold back. We need you a bit more kind of Zinchenko-like. But yeah, very disappointing from Sterling that game. We can all talk about the VAR incident, whether it was right or wrong, or how that's changing the game. But really, let's be honest, whoever watched the game, Sterling was disappointing for 75 minutes of that game. And really only started to move centrally when Silva and Aguero came off. So we'll see tonight how he plays, whether he's playing a bit more centrally. But as Adam said, that money can be well used elsewhere. I mean, players like Pulisic and obviously Son looks like a good start under Mourinho. So yeah, I'm definitely looking at Pulisic next week. Sterling, I have toyed with potentially taking a hit to get the likes of Son or Mourin. But I think I might stick with them for another week and see how it goes. Salah, actually, I know over 50,000 people, I think, have transferred him out already this week. I've been on Mane, similar to Adam, since game week 2, so that's been a good move. He's stand out for me in terms of all the mids in the game at the moment. Looking at their fixture run, though, they have Brighton at home, Everton at home, and Bournemouth away next 3. So if I was to take Sterling out, I'd probably try and look at getting Salah and going for the Liverpool triple up for those fixtures ahead of game week 18.
Interesting, very interesting, and it's something I'm toying with is actually whether to do Sterling. I haven't got Mane at the moment, and I have got Salah, so I'm toying whether to do Sterling to Mane and go for the Liverpool triple up on that front. Tom, tell us some words of wisdom. What moves are you looking at? You obviously you've got Mane. Have you still got Sterling?
No, long gone for me.
Long gone.
So he's gone for 2. He's been gone for 2 weeks, and
Ahead of the curve.
Huh?
You're ahead of the curve, then, aren't you?
Yeah. No, I think it was a little bit fortuitous, of course, because I mean, the week before last he wasn't particularly good. The game week before last, I should say, because there was an international break in between. This week, I got very lucky with that. Very, very questionable offside. That was not another armpit situation, which I was a little bit upset about as a football fan. But I mean, ditching him, like, now it's been 2 weeks and now I've gotten a lot of profit out of that sale because of the 3 blanks in a row. I've got past the punishment point. Like, I just don't really mind about Sterling doing anything like this week. You've got Newcastle and Burnley, as Danny just said. Maybe I'll be looking at him doing well in those games, especially with Jesus next to him. I mean, I agree with Andy that it was a little bit of an interesting tweet, an interesting decision to frame it that way by FPL, but the pressing forward and the inside forward together with Sterling able to kind of cut in like that is probably going to be a good thing. But I kind of got rid of Sterling just because watching him, I think that he just seems, obviously he will have those kind of moments in the game where he's looking very dangerous. But there was a time earlier in the season when he was looking like he can get goals at any moment. And over the last kind of few games, I just kind of felt, actually, no. And that and the rising tide of Vardy just made me think, well, I'm going to get rid. I guess a lot of people may be looking at moving him on for Son, as we've been speaking about. And Son's never really had a full season, has he? Like, he's had the South Korea stuff, he's been injured. And I've owned him previously, but I'll always back that guy. Like, he's Mane-esque in some ways. He's purposeful with his shooting. Like, you don't really see him doing the Salah and wasting lots of shots. So he is another kind of stat buster in some ways. And game week 19 to 21, that Brighton, Norwich and Southampton kind of holy trinity of bad defences. Maybe West Ham would be another one there. But I mean, there's lots of reasons why you'd be looking at Spurs players to try to move on Sterling, but equally now we've held him for so long, you've got that kind of sunk cost, haven't you? So maybe you're thinking, I'm going to hold on to him for Newcastle and Burnley. Surely he's going to come through soon, because you've lost out all those points for the players you could have removed him for.
Yeah, it's a bit of a painful one for those still holding, but I am certainly tempted to hold on for a little bit longer. Although on the other side of the coin, I might be taking a hit this week to get rid. So it's all a little bit up in the air for me at the moment. But we'll come to our team and transfers in a bit. Before we do, most essential Chelsea mid was another question asked there. And I think I'm pretty much on Pulisic all the way here. Willian, he does get the numbers and he does get a lot of shots in, but he's been doing that for quite some time actually in the Premier League, and he doesn't always get the goals. So that's probably where I'm leading. I think Mount, him benched last game week was pretty telling. I still think he could be a decent option, but Pulisic looks like a standout option at the moment. What do you think on that one, Adam?
Yeah, I'd agree on that. That said, we talked the other week about Willian, and I still think he's massively under the radar, because I think the one advantage he has, he creates a lot of big chances, and he's linking up really well with the front guy. So, and he's good for bonus. So, and I think he's the least rotation, or he's the most rotation proof, based on some of the comments Lampard said about how he helped his defensive part of the game. So I actually think, because he's getting a run of games consistently, because he's, over the last few years, he's been in and out of the team, or he's been starting a few and then rotated. So I think he's got 40, he's got something like 43 points in his last 8 matches, so fairly consistent. So I think Pulisic is probably the best one, but I wouldn't discount Willian at the moment.
Andy, what do you think on that? Have you got any strong opinions on Chelsea mids?
Yeah, the Pulisic numbers grabbed the headlines, 5 goals in the last 6 games. Interestingly, if you look at the shot counts, Willian's actually had more shots than Pulisic. And if you combine that with 4 big chances created versus Pulisic only creating 2, we know Pulisic is a very greedy player, which is great for FPL assets. So Willian is definitely closer than I think people would think to Pulisic in terms of the stats. But Pulisic's output is just insane at the moment. So yeah, he is definitely coming in for me this week. If you look at the fixtures again, you've got West Ham at home, Villa at home. Adam, don't say anything. I know you're a Villa fan. And then Everton away. So the stats are there for Pulisic. The fixtures are there, and the form is there. I've still got Mount at the moment, and I'll be monitoring him in the next game to see if that's worth potentially moving to Moura, or maybe even trying to find the funds for Willian as well.
So you're
just on Tom did he posted it in our hub, one of the hub groups today, the prospects that he did earlier in the year, Tom. And one of the questions that I had, because I think Pulisic looks great at the moment, but we see players that go through purple patches of form. Do we think it's sustainable? Because actually, when you look at maybe his Dortmund days, he was never really that prolific. Do we think he can keep it up? Has he got maybe a style that suits him? So I don't know if what you guys think on that.
I mean, you have to remember that he's 20. Like that's what's crazy. Like it feels like he's been around for absolutely ages, but he's 20 years old. Like I think it's very difficult. Like if you've got a player who's in their late 20s in the prime of their career, then maybe we can look at the past and say, oh, actually, this is probably what's going to happen. They're going to default to this sort of level. With Pulisic, you didn't really see that because he was so young when he broke into the team, and then was overhauled by someone even younger than him in Jadon Sancho. So with Pulisic, like what was noticeable was that he had a very similar level of take-ons to Hazard, and I think that was why he was brought into Chelsea as well, to kind of infuse them going forward. The reality probably is that he did need at least to work on the end product, but maybe that was also about the way in which he was played at Dortmund as well, especially under Favre in the last season. He's still doing very, very well, Pulisic, and 39 points, Andy was implying in the last kind of 4 game weeks is absolutely amazing. He's basically Chelsea's Mane, isn't he? He's incredibly selfish. He's second for XGI amongst mids in the last 6 game weeks, which is pretty damn good. And as you guys mentioned, Willian, yeah, always good. Always good. He's top of the shots and also top of the chances created over the last 6. But he does this every year. He reminds me of Dusan Tadic in some ways because he's always got amazing stats, but the output never quite gets there. There's a reason why. I mean, he's 31 years old now. There's a reason why he's never quite got there. It's just because he just lacks that little bit of X factor. Of course, this week he's now going to score double-figure points. I've said that, but. I think that Pulisic should be the man for me. And if I've got Mount, I'm happy to keep Mount. But if I was given free reign, I'd bring Pulisic in and probably captain him. Because I'm not. I'm going to captain Abraham this week because West Ham is so rubbish that it doesn't really matter to me. I'm going to captain one of them. But if I could, I'd Pulisic in and captain America.
Very nice. I think Willian, he's kind of like the opposite to Vardy in terms of stat busters, isn't he? So that's, I think he is a good pick. And, as Tom said, he's probably going to go score a brace this week against West Ham. But yeah, for me, it's Pulisic does seem like the best midfield pick from Chelsea, certainly. And one of the best midfield picks in the game, I'd say. Moving on then, we're going to finish off with everyone's transfers or potential transfers and captaincy. Starting with you, Adam, your team up there looking pretty healthy by the looks of things. have you made your transfers, or are you
No, so I've
still
got 2
debating?
transfers. So I will be bringing it. So Sterling's most likely going to be going, and that will fund Son and possibly Connolly to Jimenez. The other options I'm looking at are Rashford and Pulisic instead. So torn on it at the moment. I think I quite fancy Son. I think in the back of my mind, could Mourinho's team potentially be better on the counter away from home? So I don't know. So and because Chelsea have got 3 very good fixtures in 4, haven't they? 3 very good home fixtures. So torn on that. I'll probably captain Mane because Brighton have been terrible away from home, but it is very much a coin toss between him and Vardy, and I may end up changing it before the deadline.
Yeah, I think there's quite a few potential captaincy calls this weekend, so I'm intrigued to find out which way you guys are going. Tom, still good? You're going to stick with Abraham captaincy, which you've made your transfers. Tell the viewers and listeners about those moves.
Sure. So, yeah, I mean, I did my transfers again early, broke all the rules. I think we all say at the start of the season, be patient, wait until the information comes in and then make your transfers. But in this case, I was on 0.0 to move Son and Chilwell in and remove Mendy and Tielemans, which is probably a bit awkward because Tielemans obviously has a very good run of fixtures coming up. But I felt, I just felt convinced by Son. I think he's one of those players I've got a soft spot for as a footballer. And then in an FPL context, I just think, well, with Mourinho coming in with, I think it's Bournemouth, Man United and Burnley in the next 3. Those are 3 very different sorts of games, but equally those are games that we're going to see Mourinho, I think, obviously they're 2-0 down against Olympiacos as we speak, so maybe they're trying to just kind of duck out of that one and focus on the league. Who knows? That's what I'm saying as a Son buyer, but I'm hoping we're going to see an upturn, that upturn continue in the league at least. And Chilwell is kind of a sop for the fact that I sold Tielemans. I think that if you look at the Hub's comparison tools, compare Chilwell to Pereira. Like Chilwell absolutely blows him out of the water. Absolutely fantastic stats that he's been posting over the last few weeks, and indeed got 2 bonus last week. So he's looking like a nice way of kind of quote unquote covering the lack of the fact that I haven't got Tielemans or Maddison. I've got Abraham captain at the moment because West Ham are just so terrible. They are genuinely terrible. I go on any data source you can, just look at West Ham's defensive data. It's really bad in terms of conceding big chances for sure. But that's contingent on minutes in the Champions League. If Tammy plays 90 minutes, the fact that we've got 3 game weeks over the next 7 days from Saturday, I may be a little bit scared, a little bit spooked and take it off Tammy. But I mean, really, I think I'd ideally love to be captaining a Chelsea player this week because I tend to like to target rubbish defences, and West Ham are beyond rubbish. Like Roberto couldn't catch a goal, could he, frankly? So in this context, Tammy, a guy who specialised in scoring high XG chances against West Ham defence who specialised in giving up high XG chances, I just can't see past that. But it really is contingent on how it goes. If not, it will be defaulting to Mane.
Surely Roberto doesn't start the weekend.
I know, but you've got David Martin, haven't you? Who I don't think he's ever played a Premier League game. Like we saw that with the Sheffield United goalkeeper Simon Moore, wasn't it? This weekend as well. I mean, admittedly, he was actually okay, but you've still got no Diop for West Ham, for example. You've got a defensive unit who don't seem certain in any way, shape, or form. So I don't think Roberto not playing is going to be particularly amazing. Who knows? Dave Martin could have a game of his life.
Yeah, I think Abraham looks like a very good captaincy shout. The one thing I do have a little bit of concern about with Abraham is just he does seem to be getting taken off quite a bit, and with your captaincy, that is a little bit concerning, especially when you got the likes of Vardy and Mane who seem to be playing 90 minutes, and they've got good fixtures as well. So I'm not sure on that one, but I can certainly see why you go that way. And West Ham do look very, very shaky. And Abraham, he has been in brilliant form, and he could well come in with a massive haul there. So moving on to my team, then we're hoping we're going to spend Andy next. Moving on to Andy's team. And how's it going for you, Andy?
Well, since I agreed to come on this podcast, I think my rank's fallen about 550,000 places. So,
welcome to my world.
Podcast curse.
Tom's rebirth. Thank God I'm not superstitious, otherwise I've sacked myself. Easy transfer this week for me. I've got the funds to do Cantwell to Pulisic, so I'll be tripling up on Chelsea against the terrible West Ham defence. My captaincy's pretty firmly on Mane, looking at Brighton's away defensive record. The last 4 games, XGC of almost 12, which clearly the worst. Conceded 80 shots in those 4 games. So pretty, and of course the guarantee of playing 90 minutes. One thing I know, Tom, you have Salah. So I'd be waiting to see how Salah performs against Napoli, given that record, that Brighton away defensive record, just to see how he performs. If he plays very well, very lively, gets taken off around 60 minutes, then you might want to consider holding on to him. So anyway, I'm going for the Chelsea triple up. I have played with taking Sterling out and using those funds to upgrade Connolly up to someone maybe even like Jesus, for example. But it's feels like a bit of a short-term punt, given that we haven't really seen enough of Jesus, and he doesn't play as directly as Aguero might. He tends to get involved on the wings and holding up play and creating, rather than Aguero, who's more of an out-and-out goal scorer. But the jury's still out for that one, and I'll probably look at that one next week. If Salah performs very well, then I might look at Sterling to Salah. But as you can see, I've got Adrian just lurking there on the bench, which is blocking my third Liverpool spot, so I'd require a hit to get him in. But yeah, that's my move for this week, is bringing in the Pulisic, the megastar Pulisic. Obviously going to play.
I saw the Wood shout paid off last week.
Yeah, well, it's between Wood and Lacazette, actually. But then Lacazette would have blocked this upgrade of Cantwell.
Yeah.
So I went for Wood, and he's obviously got one more good game before he rolls into, I think it's Man City and then Spurs. So following, if we look two game weeks onwards, then I might be looking at someone like Ings, who has a great run. I think he's I think Southampton are top of the hub fixture list. They've got Watford, Norwich, Newcastle in the next 3. Clearly coming into an area of fixture congestion, which might not be great for someone as injury prone as Ings, but that run is absolutely incredible, and he is the target. He is the talisman of that team, to use Tom's term.
I like that. Cheeky differential pick for you there. Moving on to my team then, and last game week was not particularly good. I brought Maddison in, and obviously he scored the goal, got ruled out, and I also had Sterling captaincy, which also got ruled out by VAR. So I was hating on VAR quite a lot last game week, but I did bring in Chilwell, which was something good, and I think that he's going to be a good pick going forward. I've obviously still got Sterling. I've still got Salah. As Andrew said, I'm kind of waiting to see how Salah does in the Champions League midweek. I did almost knee-jerk Salah to Mane on Saturday night because I saw the price changes were happening, but I thought that I would hang on to it and see whether I wanted to move Sterling to Mane. I also really want Son in, so I might look at Mount up to Son if I downgrade one of those two as well. And so there's a lot of potential moves that I could make. I'm half considering a -8 for Mount, Sterling and Salah out for Pulisic, Son and Mane, but that does seem a little bit of a knee jerk. So but at the same time, it's been one of those seasons where I actually am a player that takes quite a few hits, and this season I've been very, very conservative. So it might be reverting back to my more hit-taking days, which have served me well in the past. So I'm debating that, but yes.
Is that on your team then? Because you've got Tomori on the bench. Is he going to stay there? Because they've obviously got a great record at home, Chelsea.
Yeah, no, he's probably going to come in. I would have thought for Lundstrom potentially, but yeah, he's going to be coming off.
And Villa will score at United.
Yeah, I bench Maguire out of those. That's an absolute disaster of a move, that getting slab-headed in, isn't it?
Yeah, Maguire hasn't.
Just get rid of it. Just get rid of him as soon as you can. Well, he's the thing is though, terrible.
you look at United's XG conceding, and it's been the best of the league so far. This
I know,
season.
but if you watch United as well, like they've got all the confidence of a young man in a bar, haven't they? absolutely horrendous. And Maguire was culpable this weekend against Sheffield United. Like, obviously, Phil Jones was there, which is going to cause uncertainty no matter where he is. But it's just not been working out for United, has it? So he might be one.
Yeah, I strongly fancy Villa to score at United. I don't think we'll necessarily win or get anything, but I think we'll score.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can't really argue that, Maguire's been a bad pick and United being bad in defence. But I feel like I want to give him one more game, and then potentially I'll go on to Robertson if I still, if I move Salah out and do the double up. I know a lot of people are hating on Liverpool defence at the moment, but I think, with those fixtures, I do still quite fancy the Liverpool double up. I know they haven't been keeping clean sheets, but it's one of those where it's future points potential you care about rather than past points. And I think that over the next few fixtures, Liverpool, Alexander-Arnold and Robertson could well come good. So those are my thoughts, but it's one of those where I'm not sure at all at the moment. Can wait for the midweek fixtures and go from there, really. Okay, and that's about it for this week's podcast. But thank you all very, very much for coming on. And where can we find you, gents? Adam, where can the listeners and the viewers find you?
Yeah, you can find me Hopcroft13 on Twitter.
Nice one, Andy.
I'm at FPL Fantasy Guide.
And Tom?
I'm at WGTA_FPL and on all podcast repositories if you want to listen to me further, which I very much doubt after having heard me for the last 30 minutes or so.
That's very that's very not true. I'm sure the listeners will go give you a follow if they don't already. I'm sure most of them do. But our podcast is now available on all major podcast providers. And if you like what you hear, please share, subscribe, retweet, and all that good stuff. And especially helps if you can give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. Our Twitter handle is FFootballHub, and our podcast Twitter handle is FFH_podcast. So please do drop a follow on there. And don't forget, you can go to fantasyfootballhub.co.uk/free trial if you want to access all our members' features, including advanced fixture tickers, comparison tool, Opta-stats, team reveals from top-ranked players, team planners, community Slack channel, and WhatsApp groups, and much, much more. But I hope you all have a good game week, and we will be back next week with another podcast. Bye for now.